For the first time in 7.5 years, the U.S. envoy to the United Nations has visited South Korea. U.S. Ambassador to the UN Linda Thomas-Greenfield met with President Yoon Suk Yeol and other senior officials to discuss cooperation within the UN Security Council. She's expected to hold a press conference in Seoul later in the day. For more details, we're joined by Professor Kim Hyun-wook at the Korean National Diplomatic Academy. Professor Kim, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me here.
So this is the first time in more than 7 years that the U.S. ambassador to the UN has visited South Korea. So what does this mean in terms of relations between Seoul and Washington?
Well, I think after the Yoon Suk Yeol government came in, the U.S.-South Korea relationship has been upgraded several times. And I think the visit of the U.S. Ambassador to UN to Seoul signifies that the relationship and cooperation between two countries is getting wider and wider into the international community level. Not only the North Korea issue, but there are a lot of issues in the United Nations that two countries can cooperate. Two countries are now belonging to the UN Security Council, and a lot of global security issues are there. Maybe the ambassador, U.S. ambassador to UN, I think, signify that a lot of agenda is there in the United Nations that needs South Korea's cooperation.
Right, and the ambassador says she'll find ways to seek alternatives and creative ways to enforce North Korea sanctions after Russia recently blocked the renewal of the UN sanctions panel that monitors North Korea's nuclear weapons and missile programs. What's your take on this?
Yeah, it's very surprising that because of Russia's veto, the experts panel under the UN Security Sanctions on North Korea Committee has been totally canceled. It was supposed to be postponed every year, but Russia, bothered it. So I think, there's a homework for the, people at the United Nations to find some alternatives now, maybe inside the United Nations or outside the United Nations. But if we want to establish some other alternative, committee or, group within the United Nations, I think there will be another Russian or Chinese, bother movement or veto movement. So I think it's proper for us to think about what we can establish outside the United Nations, something that doesn't need any cooperations by Russia. So it will be centered around some relevant countries like U.S. and Japan and Korea and some other countries in the world and also in the Indo-Pacific region, I think.
Right, and yesterday she visited the demilitarized zone separating the two Koreas. What does this signify and what message does this send to the North?
She talked a lot of things, but I think the core of her speech is that, the U.S. is open for any dialogue with North Korea without any preconditions. Because, North Korea has been asking some preconditions, set by the United Nations, United States, before North Korea joins the dialogue with the United States. After the Singapore dialogue between U.S. and North Korea in the year 2018, at the dialogue statement, I think it was very clear at the time that in order for North Korea to be denuclearized, there should be first security provided by the United States to North Korea, and also confidence building measures should be provided by U.S. to North Korea. So I think North Korea is interpreting this, that, in order for North Korea to go into a dialogue with the United States, some measures like security provision and confidence building by the United States should be given to North Korea first. So I think that's some gap now exists between North Korea and the United States. But I think this is just an excuse by North Korea. The real reason is that North Korea doesn't have any intentions to denuclearize itself.
Right, and while meeting the U.S. envoy, President Yoon said he looks forward to close cooperation, as both Seoul and Washington are currently serving as members of the United Nations Security Council. You briefly mentioned this earlier, but how will the two-year term as a non-permanent member of the Council help South Korea resolve North Korean issues?
I think, they can cooperate more on details, something that I have already talked about. For example, like, finding some alternatives within the United Nations after the, expert panel has been totally nullified inside the United Nations because of Russian veto. So something like that. I mean, South Korea and some other countries like Japan and the United States are very relevant countries with the North Korea issues. And they are the ones that is paying close attention to North Korea issues, how we can monitor sanctions on North Korea, how we can make other international communities and countries to abide by the sanction measures, things like that. Other countries really don't care about this. So being the members of, Security Council, UN Security Council, even though it's not a permanent member, South Korea will give a lot of ideas and some measures that needs to the United Nations. They can toss up the issues and agenda to the United Nations, and I think that will be very important role for South Korea. And also, in addition to the sanction measures, I think the North Korea human rights issues and the South Korean people detained within North Korea, including the military prisoners, are really important issues for South Korea. So all these issues are something that South Korea and the United States need to cooperate in the near future.
All right, Professor Kim, I guess we'll have to see where this goes. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you so much.